Dawn gets her dessert. No sugar now, Dawn.
Watch it.
I took down the sugar. The smoothie was good.
Who in here, raise your hand if you got one of the $100 bills yesterday from Lauren. Okay, who's done something with it already? Anybody?
Hey, it was my wife.
I told my wife that, you know, I won this $100 bill and I was supposed to give it to somebody and change their life. And she said, why don't you give it to me?
How many in here have read the book, The Kingdom Assignment? Steve had?
I have a book, but I have to.
Bill had? Okay. Pastor in Southern California asked his board to give him $10,000 and $100 bills. And he started going to his congregation one at a time and asking if they would take that and make it grow, multiply. Incredible story. I'd already been doing the $100. You know, I asked all the Hills Angels to give a $100 bill away every 30 days to a total stranger. And so that kind of had it. So one of the things we hope to do is think that Julius and Mickey, we could do Zoom at the next summit in Memphis, Tennessee. We could have like Ron Hall, his book's out. If you haven't read his book, same kind of difference as me. The movie will be out this fall. We could have, he could be sitting in his family room, right, Julius? And Steve is the Zoom person also, so we'll be doing that. So anyhow, what's the first book I wrote? Living at the Summit. So in 1994, I sold 25% of my company, and my partner took over the running of it, and we moved to St. Louis. So people started coming to me and saying, you know, you were just an egghead professor, how'd you build this large real estate company? Would you coach me, would you teach me? So from 94 to 99, I was, you know, speaking and doing some coaching and different things. And then people kept saying, well, have you written this down anywhere? No, I haven't written it down, just something we need to do. So I went off to a friend's cabin for 3 days and built 90% of living at the summit. There's no way to measure the value to you when you write a book. Brett had the same experience. It just puts you on another plane. My theory is most everybody out there would love to write a book, but they never will. Some of them will even start one. Who was it? Somebody said they written a chapter. Is that you, Kim? So we have some fun with it, but you really do need to write. And just think of something like chicken soup. See, any one of us, Steve Denning, I could have done chicken soup. We gathered other people's stories. Here I am, at this point in time in my life, I go in to meet Nancy Erickson at the Pastries of Denmark, right, Nancy? And I go up to order some soup, and I said, what kind of soup do you have? And they tell me. I said, you don't have chicken soup for the soul? And she said, no, why do you ask? I said, well, I'm honored to get the co-author. You were? Can I have your picture? It's just crazy. Or a lady stuck her head the other door in Del Mar Garden where Betty is. She's talking to her friend and said, did you know he's a published author? Do you know he's written a book? I mean, it's just that kind of thing. So, thanks to Doug Damon for connecting us with LinkedIn, wasn't it? I think LinkedIn with Nancy, we've been able to take this to the next level. Even if it's just your life story and nobody sees it but your grandkids, you really need to write a book. And if you've got a story to tell, people love stories. Some of you know the answer to this question, and I'm not going to give you a $100 bill if you get it wrong. Chicken Soup for the Soul, 1993. 33 publishers turned it down. The 34th one said, I'll take a chance. That person was from Jupiter, Florida. You know where that is, John?
I do.
How many of you think, I'll ask somebody who hadn't heard this before. Leslie, how many total books of Chicken Soup for the Soul series have been sold?
Oh my gosh, we've got to almost be 1 billion, don't we, with the whole entire, I have no idea.
turn for other people's stories. In my book, I just have a page and a half of my story about when I started selling franchise in Augusta, Georgia. But you just get it other people's story. That's what it is. And the difference is, the guy, Felix Dennis, who wrote How to Get Rich, one of his things was, forget the big idea, it's what?
Execution.
Execution. So that's what these three guys are doing in one form or the other. So let's start out. And so Doug, you were just looking on LinkedIn and came across Nancy.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how it came about, but I got a notice, I think, that, anyway, I saw Nancy's name, and I saw that she was from St. Louis, and that she was the book professor who take people through the process of writing a book from A to Z and everything in between. And I said, well, knowing Tom Hill all these years, he's always telling everybody, when you're going to finish your book, that sort of thing. I thought it might be a perfect fit. So we connected, and as it turned out, there was one other gentleman in the same week, I think it was, that said, you live in St. Louis, you've got to meet Tom Hill. And that's what I said. So she did, and
Here we are.
the rest is history.
Yeah. So Doug is a definite God wink. I've been invited to Reno, Nevada, 10 years ago maybe, 8 or 10.
Yeah, 11.
11, to do a visit presentation. And so I got a cab, and he didn't even know where this place was I was going. Finally figured it out. It's a real upscale country club, right? And so he dropped me off. And I don't know anybody. I don't know the chair, anybody. And I walk in the front door, and there's this guy walking across the lobby. I said, sir, excuse me, could you? And look where all the things that's happened since then. Our wives now are what, twin sisters by separate mothers. It's just been an amazing story. So those kind of things you can't make up. So that was our connection with Nancy. How did you meet Nancy, Terry?
LinkedIn. I was on a weekly coaching call with Nancy, and she mentioned Tom Hill, so, you know, we're on speakerphone, so I bring up LinkedIn, type in Tom Hill, and click the button to connect, and, well, guess what? He called.
And here you are.
Here I am.
Yeah, you heard Alvin's story. So, anybody could write a book. John, you're writing a book. But if you get in a system like what Nancy has, it makes all the difference in the world. And it's not easy. It's not cheap. It's a system that you need to work through to get it done. But there's no excuse not to. Candace, how many in here have written a book? There's a lot of room yet. We're not through yet, Nancy. We've got a ways to go. So, Terry, tell a little bit of your experience as far as what's the book about? Why did you decide to write it? Why did you decide to find Nancy?
It was always a bucket list thing that I wanted to do. In fact, Terry, I got a copy of the cover and a one-page synopsis and the discussion points that'll be in the book, so you can give me your 2 cents worth. But I guess it was always a bucket list thing for me.
So tell your business story.
Okay. I grew up in a small town, Huron, Illinois, about 30 miles east of St. Louis. Our family owned a wholesale fuel and lubricants company, so we delivered fuel to farmers, excavators, trucking companies, stuff like that. Grew up with the company. It was decided that I should work away from the company, so that was a very similar story from yesterday. And the company was having difficulties cash flowing, and we had an opportunity to buy another company, and I had a finance background, and I knew if we bought that company, we would be back in profitability. So I came back with Mom and Dad to buy that company and get the ball rolling. So I joked that when I started back with the company, it was me, my mom and dad. We had 2 trucks, and it was a good day if they both started. So we bought Bowen Oil Company, and I bought Bowen Oil Company in 1992 and started Tri-County Petroleum. And between 1992 and 2010, had the opportunity to buy 11 different oil companies, started my own brand of lubricants, trademarked it. grew it to a company with over $42 million a year in sales. It was probably the largest privately held wholesale fuel company in Southern Illinois. Covered about 14 counties in Southern Illinois and St. Louis metropolitan area. Had 5 bulk plants and a lubricants packaging facility. So a bulk plant is a storage facility for fuel. So we could store about 400,000 gallons of fuel. Did a lot of hedging. It was a very progressive company. So I was bought. It's very stressful owning a fuel company, when fuel's $4 a gallon. Challenging. And you have 3,000 local customers, and I always say the key to that is local. So you couldn't go anywhere. I mean, whether you went to church, a local picnic, a restaurant, there was a customer there that was going to bend your ear about something. So my dad had a heart attack in 2006 and had to leave the company. So that really changed the dynamic of it. My dad, I have a great relationship with him. Thankfully, he survived it, but he just had to leave the company. So in 2010, I worked with a lady from Weatherford, Texas. Her name was Betsy Bixby, and she is a coach for privately held oil companies. So she does cash flow coaching seminars, and she has a brokerage and values companies. So she valued my company, and it's like, you know what? If I could get that, I could take a lot of chips off the table. And so we decided to sell it and found Growmark, which is a $6 billion agronomy company based out of Bloomington, Illinois. So Growmark is the mothership over the FS member company. So Growmark bought my lubricants division, and 8 of their FS member companies bought my fuel side.
So you decided you needed to write a book because what?
Well, like I said, it was always a bucket list thing. It wasn't really going anywhere, and I met a guy just networking, and we was at the bread company, and he brought it up. He wanted to write a book, and he wanted to write a book about plumbing, which I really thought was odd, but I guess
Book
write a book about plumbing, write a book about plumbing.
Oh,
So
everybody wants to know about that.
yeah. So he's kind of telling me, he's like, you know what, all you got to do is get 8 chapters, and it just doesn't really matter how good it is, just the fact that you wrote a book's good enough. So I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll try it. So I'm sitting at home in my man cave, and I kind of sketch out 8 chapters, and we have a hunting club in Southern Illinois, and I thought, I'm going to go down to the farm, take my son down there, he can go bow hunting, and I'm going to stay in the cabin, I'm going to start to write this book. So I get about 3 chapters into it, and I'm a numbers guy, believe me. If I can write a book, anybody can write a book. So I get about 3 chapters into it, and it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This isn't going anywhere. So I like to say I Googled a guide wink. I came back home, and I Googled a book coach. And Nancy pops up, and it's like, well, she's from St. Louis. I'm from the St. Louis area, so I gave her a call. It does cost money, but it's very affordable, I think. I'm not going to say what I spend, because she probably charged me twice as much.
Because you're from Illinois.
That's right. But well, we get together, and she's a great person. She's got a great system. It holds you accountable. Nancy's going to laugh at our last get-together in St. Louis. I said, this whole process is about like getting tased. Imagine 2 guys sitting around drinking a beer, and you're like, come on, let's do it. It'll be fun. And all of a sudden you get into it, it's like, oh my God. But, the first phase is really easy. Then you start writing, and you're about halfway through, and it's like, oh, for the love of Pete. I'm never going to get this thing done. But then you've got money stuck in it, and your wife's like, you're spending all this money, are you going to finish this thing or what? So you're kind of forced into it. But now I'm through it, so it's like, all right, let's do it again.
When will it be out?
It will be out in July. So that cover was actually decided on literally Monday, I believe. And so Nancy calls me on Sunday night. Jerry, this is Nancy. It's like, hi Nancy, how you doing? It's like, I'm done editing your book, and I'm going to email it to you right now, and I'm going to have it back by Monday. And I'm like, what? So it's edited. I'm on chapter 8 right now, kind of giving it the final read. And then this whole writing a book thing is you don't know what you don't know. I don't know what the next process is. And Nancy does a great job. You try and ask her about something ahead, she's like, no, I ain't there yet. I'm like, okay. So we got to design the inside yet, which I don't know. And then we're going to talk about a marketing program, which I don't know yet. But
You don't know what you don't know?
You don't know what you don't know. So the book is about buying and selling companies. Like like I said, I had the opportunity to buy 11 different companies while I own the oil company. We've since innovative business brokerage or innovative business advisors, the company I have now. So a hidden agenda behind helping people, a hidden agenda behind starting innovative was not only help people sell their businesses, and I'm a CVA, certified valuation analyst, so we do business valuations and help people with exit planning. But the hidden agenda was to buy other companies. So we did purchase our first company in October 2015, the property management company. And what Tom doesn't know from after our meeting yesterday with Ralph, got a good lead of mine in another company. So I really enjoyed doing that. So the book starts out with why you would, buying a business and why it would be better to buy an existing business versus maybe starting something from scratch, which isn't impossible. We did it with Innovative, but it's definitely more difficult. And then the process of buying a business and valuing a business. And then I really believe in the process of building your team. So the middle of the book is kind of about building your team of, whoever it needs to be, but mainly, there's chapters on bankers, CPAs, attorneys, financial advisors, talk about your bankability and how to keep bankable. Then we kind of transition into building value in the company. How do you make it sellable? Why would somebody want to buy that company? There's a big difference. I can value a company versus the cash flow of the company. But much like the example we did yesterday, that was a great example. Here's a company that's spinning off good cash, but is it a viable company to purchase? And at the end of the day, it's really not. I had over 800 farm accounts in Dig Ag Banking, so I thought that was really fun to dig into something like that. But typically, farms aren't sold; they're passed on. And you might continue to give the mom or dad a salary or live in the house and pay all their expenses, but it's difficult to sell. So we talk about building that intrinsic value in the company to make it sellable, then the process of selling the company, and then the last chapter I call "Don't Be Like the Dog That Caught the Car." Know what you're going to do with your life once you sell your company. I was only 40 years old when I sold Tri-County, and I didn't do that. I had no idea what I was going to do after I was done with the company. I sold the company. I had to work for Growmark for 6 months, and then I was done. And it was kind of funny. I'm sitting around the house and watching the Today Show in the morning and Price is Right at noon and Oprah in the afternoon. And so my wife looks at me and she's like, "You need to get a job." So apparently our house is a marital asset that I'm not allowed to be at every day.
So they'll get to meet her tonight.
Yeah, she'll be there tonight.
His wife is here.
So ask her about me and she'll roll her eyes.
Yeah. So it's been a great journey, and it'll be out in July, and it'll be accessible then, right?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how that whole rolling out process works yet, but it is kind of funny. You talk to people, and it's amazing the reaction that people give you when you tell them you're writing a book.
Yeah.
And through Nancy's coaching, she tells you start letting people know that it's coming out, and just locally, it's created quite a buzz. So people are excited.
You're semi-famous.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to see a show of hands who anybody that's ever been to a city in Nevada called Winnemucca. Who's been to Winnemucca? Oh. You got to go to Winnemucca at least one time. Good now. So Doug, we met through the garden. Tell us a little bit of your story. Where did Winnemucca come into this?
By the way, my mother was born in Bloomington.
Really?
Yeah, Bloomington, Illinois. She came out west in the 40s. She's gone now, but to a town called Winnemucca, she was getting a divorce. Nevada had divorce law, the only state that had divorce laws in. So my dad was from Nevada, and that's where I was born, Winnemucca, Nevada. It was a rip-roaring, exciting, 5,000 people cow town with just 24-hour gambling, big-time entertainment, way back before the Las Vegas Strip was even built. And the person that brought gaming to Nevada, who was a legislator, lived right down the alley from us. And so they brought in the liberal divorce law and the gaming law, and Nevada started to take off. It was the smallest state in the union at that time.
So how'd you end up in Reno?
Well, okay, so I moved from Winnemucca, Calico to Reno Ended up there, my dad bought a business. It was a small bar supply company. And so we moved there. I was in high school, loved it. I've loved all the towns that I've lived in. And I was talking to Steve. When I got out of college with my degree in history, I couldn't find a job. I just gotten out of the Army, and I looked in the one ads, and there was no historians wanted. The original idea, my dad's idea, was you're going to be a lawyer. And kind of like Lauren was talking about yesterday, you know. I figured out at some point there that that's not really what I wanted to do. That's a fine profession, but it wasn't for me. So I got a liberal arts degree, and I'm not going to go to law school, and I'm not going to teach. So I went to work for my dad.
But before that, did you serve in the Army?
Well, yeah, I was drafted in the Army. I used up all my student deferment, and I was drafted under the old system. I was able to go in front of the draft board and talk them into one more semester. I'm not sure how I did that, but I did it. And so they gave me one more semester, and I was just living for the day at that time. Oh, okay, that's behind me now. But they remembered. And so I was drafted in the United States Army, went down to Fort Ord for my basic training, and I thought I was, with my history degree, I thought I was eminently qualified to be a clerk or something like that in the Army. And they stuck me in the infantry and sent me to Vietnam. So that didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, but yeah. So
quite an experience.
it's surreal. I mean, you go from a pretty protected, naive environment, and you're placed into a situation like that. It's the best word I could use is it's surreal. It's surreal.
So then you came back from the Army, couldn't find a job, so what did you do then?
I had to go to work for my dad, and we used to wash bottles, recycle bottles, and fill them up with orange juice and sell them to accounts. So that was the job that he put me in to start with.
That's great training for everybody, right?
Yeah, I did everything in
How to wash the bottles?
his company, and then I started selling for him. He was an accountant, and the stereotype of an accountant, hopefully this doesn't offend anybody, but the stereotype is a lot of accountants aren't really great salesmen. Now, there are lots of exceptions to that, I realize that. But, so we didn't have a salesman, and I talked the draft board into giving me one more semester. So I thought, well, maybe I can do some sales. So I went out, we grew the business, and he got mad at me. He said I was going too fast, and wasn't cash flowing, and all these terms I didn't understand. And, but he decided to get out of it, so he gave me a real good deal, a corporate redemption type thing, and I bought the business and decided to go in totally different directions. A lot of 2x4s between the eyes, learning how businesses worked, but it ended up well. Found out when I was about 61 years old that business wasn't really my passion. A little late, but that. How many people saw Animal House? You remember my favorite movie line of all time is when John Belushi got kicked out of school, and he says, 8 years of college down the drain. I love that line. I'm a little bit slower of a student than Terry is here. You know, he's got his book already, and I've been at it a bit longer, and we just finished my book map. That wasn't Nancy's fault, it was my fault. But yeah, it's kind of on the 8-year program there.
When did you decide to write a book?
Well, you've been nagging me about it for years. And then I met Nancy, and she was even more relentless than you were. Well, it's kind of like what he was describing. Well, yeah, okay, well, yeah, I'll write a book. I'd like my family to read it. I'm not sure what it'll be, but I'd like to write it for them. I don't necessarily want to go on Oprah, but if she invites me, I'll go along. And so I just started playing around with it without really having a plan. Well, that doesn't work with Nancy. You get a plan going. And I've enjoyed the process. I've really enjoyed the process. My subject matter is kind of complicated. It's more subjective. It's in the liberal arts tradition more than it is in the left-brain tradition.
Does it have a title?
Well, we've come up, we played with some ideas. We've got one that was a really great title, and I can't even remember it right now. When we did my book map, she, we do a little bit each week on this book map, and she exploded that out one day when it was all completed, and I looked at that. Whoa, did we do that? It was amazing. It reminded me of the movie A Beautiful Mind, where you had that walls covered full of stuff. That's what my book map looked like. But there were some fits and starts, because I kind of started trying to write a bit of a business book in the challenges of that, the challenge of growing up, and it turned into something more along the lines of what Alvin was talking about there. And that's where it's going.
But a title or no title yet?
No title yet that we've settled on. We've got an idea. We'll make sure it's. That's one of the things that she'll do, is take you through that whole process, including getting your name copyrighted and so on. And, so we're protecting that a little bit, I guess.
Harry, is it possible he doesn't know what he doesn't know?
Yeah,
You don't know what
very
you're doing.
possible.
But you'll learn. Okay, Alan, you wrote a book. It's here.
Yeah, okay.
So why did you write that book? When did that
I
come?
mean, which one? The first one?
Uh-huh.
The first one I wrote the old-fashioned way, sit down. I used to get up at 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. before everybody's up and write. And I was disciplined doing it then. And I carved out the time and made it happen. So I did the old-fashioned way. Idea, dump it on paper, work it through, read it again. And then I had a publishing company work with me through editing it and getting it done. So the old-fashioned.
How's it been out?
Pardon me?
How long has it been out?
Since September 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
You glad you did it?
Super glad I did it. Yeah, very glad.
So when did you
Changes
decide
things.
to write another one?
Why did I decide? So after I wrote it, I kept hearing people coming to me and telling me about I had this thing, either an artwork or something they had in the basement that they didn't do when they were great at art, but they stuck it in the basement. Now this one particular guy was detailing cars, and he was spending but he had this dream, this vision of doing this thing, but fear and lack of being vulnerable, he stuck it in his basement. And I heard people saying, yeah, it was really good too. And he's stuck in his basement. And I've met so many people who want to be singers, dancers. They want to be so many things, and they just, again, it was Henry David Thoreau said, so many people live lives of quiet desperation. So that was kind of my motivation. And I also found that I love working with entrepreneurs because I find entrepreneurs are dreamers. They love to dream. And I love dreamers like myself who, when you get together, you just talk about what's possible and what's coming up. And so that really turns me on. So I thought that book was written for the average person to get it, to believe in magic. I wanted to write one for those people who let the magic die, but they still have the pilot light there, and I wanted to kind of stoke that with the next book. So
when will it be out?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Check. All right. When he was talking about magic, the theme of my life was when I was a child in Winnemucca, Nevada. It was magic. It was magic. You could see the whole cosmos. It was pretty amazing. And somewhere along the way, I began to lose the magic. And then when I got to be about 60, 61, the magic started to reappear. And the magic, part of that was Tom's concept on synchronicity. And once I understood what synchronicity was, I started following it, and it came naturally. It was magic. one thing I wanted to say about Nancy, she's a taskmaster, but she's a very sweet taskmaster. And
Look at Amy, look at her, like, is it my daughter?
and sort of, I enjoy I do a one-on-one deal with her. We talk every week, and it's kind of like going to a psychotherapist. You know, I like to dive deep, and it's kind of like going to a psychotherapist every week and learning more about yourself as we go along. So I'm enjoying it.
So believe in the magic.
Believe in the magic.
So back.
Yeah. So that's what mine is. The second book's about. Like I said, I spend so much time with people that I get my ideas from people and what they're. I'm always working to meet a need, and I feel that we, like you said, we all have a book, or we all have some passion in us. But I was asking kids, young kids. I was lucky enough to be working with some, I think, grade 8s, and so I was asking them, when do you guys feel that you started to get conscious about the world, and then you start to step back into your shell? And they actually said to me, I think it's about high school, when they hit high school, because that's when you were so protected in elementary school. And I even walked through my son's elementary school the other day, and everything on the wall was believing in yourself and no bullying, and it was this wonderful world. You felt like you were in Mickey Mouse land. And then when you get to high school, it's like, here, go, throw you to the wolves and survive. And I think that's when everybody goes back into their shell. So I wanted to write a book about, right now the working title is Secrets of an Unlived Life. Because they say we live 2 lives, the one inside of us that's magical and awesome, and then there's the one we conform to please everyone else. So I wanted to write that book. But then the first part of my book is going to talk about the magic, but I want the second one to be, like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan to get punched in the face. I want to be that. Yeah, he's a philosopher, Mike Tyson. He said that, and he said, yeah, everybody has a game plan until you get in the ring and get punched in the face, and then you're like, what happened? And you start to flail. And that's what happens with business. You have a great dream. There's many dreamers out there, but how many fail? 95%. There's a large percent fail in the first 5 years. And so the second half of my book, I want to talk about, let's talk reality, stuff I had to learn. Being an artist, I had to learn to put my numbers hat on and pay attention to serious things like sales, marketing. But I just want to paint. I don't want to do all this stuff, but I had to learn it. So I wanted that second half to be reality. So I'll fluff and give you all the great stuff. I'll warm me up like Nancy does. But at the back end, let's get serious and get down to business.
So you do have a title?
That's the working one. Secrets of an Unlived Life. I don't know. There's subtitle I'm going to work on that. Something to tie in the reality part.
And it'll be out?
I'm going to say September 2018. It's just because Nancy has got to kick my butt a bit more. And they're right, by the way. She smiles, looks very nice, but she'll get it done.
Okay, so Terry, you sold your company, went to work for a bank for a while, and then what?
I sold the company, 100 phone calls a day. I mean, we had about 15, 20 trucks on the road, 23 employees. It was really a 7-day-a-week job. Had worked for Growmark for 6 months. Wife told me I had to get a job. Regions Bank called me, wanted me to do commercial and ag lending. So I'm like, all right, that sounds pretty cool. I've always been kind of a finance guy, so I jokingly told people I've been doing banking for 20 years and just not on the side of the fence. And at first I really liked it, and I learned a ton. Obviously, growing a company from $750,000 in sales to $42 million, there's a lot of hurdles in there. And it was very interesting to learn from the bank standpoint how they underwriting works. What are they really looking at? Are they really looking at cash flow? How do they stress the balance sheet? Why are they discounting equipment and all those things on your collateral side that would drive you nuts? But and everything was in a box, and I liked that because I didn't have to make a lot of decisions. I just do what they told me. Well, after about 3 years, you start to get that entrepreneurial itch back, and start reflecting on what did I really enjoy doing. And to be honest with you, in the book I talk about things that I did right, things that I could have done better, and that I didn't do at all. One of the things I did do right is I built a great team. I had a team of people that could run my company, which led me to be able to go out and look for the next opportunity. So after reflecting on it, what I really like to do is mergers and acquisitions. I just enjoyed, going out and planting that seed and develop, and I did that a lot. I would go talk to a business owner and say, hey, if you ever want to work together, let me know. And you get the, get away from me. And all of a sudden, 8 months later, you get that phone call. It's like, hey, why don't we have coffee? And it was funny, when I sold the company, I actually had a deal worked out to buy another company. I had built a brand new bulk plant in Red Bud, Illinois, which is south of St. Louis, and there's still a little guy in town yet, one truck operation, and I had knew him from another acquisition where he supplied the guy lubes, and I called Dave and said, hey Dave, when we built that new bulk plant in town, why don't we get together and see if there's any way we can, work together or whatever. And he goes, Lammers, don't give me shit. I know you want to buy my company, just stop by and we'll talk. So, it's just, you never know how it's going to go. And actually, that's kind of the way the conversation went yesterday. My business partner, Dave Kunkel, owns a commercial real estate company and manages commercial real estate. And he was often coming across buildings that somebody wanted to sell, and there's a business involved with it. So there was really no full-service brokerage firm on the other side, Illinois side of the river from St. Louis. So while I was working at the bank, went and got my CVA designation. That's how I sold my business. I had it valued first. So I wanted to add some credentials to valuing companies. Got my CVA, and July of 2014, I left the bank, much to my wife's chagrin, and started Innovative, and it's gaining traction and working out well. We're helping people sell companies and doing business valuation.
It's a little bit of transition time in a way, right?
Yeah, I talk about it in the book. I would not start another company from scratch. It's really difficult. From developing the paperwork and getting the website going, really the first 6 months, you're working on the company and getting it to be a functioning entity. And, then you get your first client. And, just a lot easier. We bought that company in October of 2015, and the next week I got a paycheck. So that's a lot easier than starting something from scratch.
So you live east of St. Louis, about what, 30 miles?
Huron exit off of Interstate 70, 30 miles straight east of St. Louis.
You kind of needed somebody on the west side if you could find somebody.
Yeah, somebody like Steve Denny.
So how do you, what do you see in your crystal ball for you and Steve?
It's funny. I met Steve through Tom Hill, and Steve's company, ABN, is literally exactly like mine. He wants to deal with selling companies that have a value between, I say 1 and 15 million, he says 120, but basically same range. He works with valuing companies, has a little bit different consulting deal than me, but it's identical. And we both use the value builder system. If you go to my website or his, you can click on take a value builder questionnaire for your company. I'd recommend anybody do that. And I see in our crystal ball that Steve and I will be working together more in the future. It just makes sense. There's certain synergies that go along with it. He's a very smart person. And
I'd ask Debbie about that for her.
I didn't say I was a smart person. I said he was a smart person. But no, I said, and it's really funny. So we're kind of living what you preach in the value builder system, and what makes a company valuable is to have recurring revenue. And unbeknownst to me, when I got into the fuel business, it's fuel. You have to use it. We had 800 farm accounts. When's the last time farmers didn't farm? That's recurring revenue. So you start this brokerage company, and our bread and butter was selling a company. That's when you get paid. Then you got to go find another company to sell. It's not recurring. So I'm in the process now of, building a little bit more of a coaching thing that's kind of behind the value builder system, is to work with a company to help build that intrinsic value to make the company sellable. So you actually got something to pass along. I kind of mentioned it earlier. I can value a company and say it's worth $1 million, but if you're the only person that can run that company, it makes it harder to sell. If you don't have recurring revenue, it makes it harder to sell. If there's just a number. If you're reliant on one product, a good example. I wasn't relying on one product, but a good example is I had a contract with Mobil to repackage your oil. So I had a packaging facility. We'd buy bulk, 8,000 gallons at a time, and put it in 55-gallon drums and 5-gallon buckets, etc. You got to have a license to do that. But if you wanted to buy my company, it's not a guarantee that Mobil's going to give you that packaging agreement. So that makes it harder to sell your company. As it turns out for me, I was fortunate, kind of right place, right time. Grow Market just bought a lubricants blending facility in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and they wanted to get in the bulk oil business in Southern Illinois, which they had 0 gallons. And here I'm sitting with a full-blown repackaging facility and over 500,000 gallons in lubricant, 500,000 gallons in lubricant sales throughout Southern Illinois. So, I mean, it was just a perfect match. They didn't care about that mobile repackaging agreement. So,
Still transitioning, growing,
So-
learning, seeing where it goes.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's exciting. I'm jazzed up again. It's fun. Tom and I had breakfast with an entrepreneur yesterday morning that started a company from scratch and has a $300 million construction company and really was a pioneer in the industry. And turns out he's been wanting to talk to me about a company that he's involved with, and it's exciting. I told my wife about it, and last night she already killed me. So that's a touchy subject.
Past continues. So Doug, speaking of transition, you're kind of transition time. Tell me a little bit about the business, and you found somebody to help your kids, right? Coach them a little bit.
There's a lot of great coaches in this room and in this organization. Tom, Brett Blair, works with 2 of my kids. My successors are older kids.
Tell them about your kids.
And Elizabeth and Jimmy have worked with our kids. I've got 3 kids, and I always have to do the math to figure out the ages, but 40, 41, and the youngest one's, the baby's 37. 2 boys and a girl. They all have different skill sets. They've all been involved in the business. It's going to be a family transition. I had a half partnership, half interest in a company in Toronto that did the same thing we do here. And recently, my partner bought me out after 25 years. So that was a good deal for me, that part. So it's decomplicating, and I'm doing more and more what I like to do. And I feel like we're all everybody's teacher, and we learn from everybody. And so I really enjoy that interaction with people, and particularly groups like this, because I just learn so much. Everybody is a wealth of information. And that's kind of where my true purpose goes. So I joke that they moved me out of my big office into a broom closet at the south end of the building.
They meaning?
They meaning my 3 successors. Kids sounds
Kids.
yeah, my 3 kids moved me out of there. I kind of like the broom closet. And so I'm, other than some strategic things that I'm still involved in and will continue to be for a while, I'm phasing out of it. And a lot of business owners get emotionally attached to their business. And I'm not one of those, because I'm a history major.
Not a business major.
No, but I've had a lot of fun along the way and learned some things, helped start a bank.
Any bucket list?
Bucket list put too much pressure on. So, no, I just like to continue working with people. I love human development, love human relationships, and that's what I want to do.
You married an amazing lady.
I did, yeah, thank you. Yeah, she regrets not being here, but it's the first one she's missed. She had a little problem with her foot, the surgery on her foot, but she's come along fine. She just couldn't walk through the airport.
You didn't kick her or anything?
No.
Sure.
You know, she's actually, you know this, Tom, but a lot of people know Diana. She's really a joyful person. She's really a positive person all the time, always positive.
Despite having dogs.
Well, she loves the dogs, so do I. Yeah, we have 2 Labradors.
So you're in a good spot. The book comes out, probably do some speaking, do the book.
Yeah, the book will be out in 2027. No. What's that? First part. Yeah, we're putting a little bit of a rush on it. I would say this, one thing I know about what I've learned is that, and it started with you when you got into the chicken soup franchise, if you publish a book, you've got instant exponential credibility in your area of expertise that you wouldn't have without publishing the book. So,
Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah.
Totally agree. All right, Alan, if you look in your crystal ball, you're in kind of transition from your original business to where more, you've been more of a morphing process. Now, tell us a bit about that.
Well, presently I'm trying to, actually, just want to touch on something. Did you see how excited Terry was about his life? That's what I'm talking about, hanging out with entrepreneurs. They're excited every day. And then yours sounds like that thing I brought up, that 2027 when you're going to release. It sounds like that installment, suicide installment. No. But slow but sure. But what I'm transitioning, I want to get away from, right now, the way I make my living is one-to-one. And I just feel like my soul is bursting through the containers. So I need to touch more people. So I'm transitioning more into a leveraging my time idea. So a coaching model online. I'd like to go online and touch more people because the book, I just had a post on Instagram yesterday from someone from Sweden with my book. So, so those are always nice. And so I'd like to do some more work where I'm touching more people. So that, how do I leverage my time is my next transition. And my company, the center, I've got some great people in place. I've created a second location in Toronto, so I've got 2 locations now. Now it's time to create a model that I can walk away from it and just oversee good people running it for me and spread the message.
Have a team, right?
Have a team.
Have a team, right?
Build a team.
So Terry, tell us a little bit about
Well, I'd like to just say one quick thing about Nancy's program, by the way. The first one I wrote by myself, like I said, the typical way you'd write it. But having Nancy there doing the structure that she has, that structure, I needed it to get this one done. Because I found I didn't have the time, but the way she's laid out, very well thought out. When you've written one and you can see the difference, you can see it's a great model.
Yeah. By the way, Terry's going to pass out Nancy's brochure. Is that okay, Nancy? That'll be fine. Okay, Terry, tell us about your personal family.
Personal family, 3 wonderful kids and a fantastic wife. My kids are 21, 19, and 17. They'll be those ages this year, so we're on the odd year. My 2 girls and a boy. My daughter is a junior at the University of Kentucky, and she's studying to be a doctor, so she's a little stressed out right now. She takes her MCAT in May 18th, I believe. So, but fantastic kid, was a valedictorian of her class, straight A's in college. So,
Will you have to call her doctor?
I would be thrilled to call her doctor. So, my second daughter, Caitlin, classic middle child. She also doing very well. She's a freshman at Mizzou, studying accounting. And my son Trent is 16 right now. He's a sophomore in high school and eats anything that's not nailed down. So he's about 6'1" and 190 pounds. So I mean, he's a good kid. So my wife worked for me at Tri-County. She took care of all the payables. I would say she was in charge of the bank at Tri-County. The deal was when we sold the company, she didn't have to take work, which she took to heart. And I giantly just not when in the book it says she doesn't have a job, but she recently started working for me at Cecil Management a couple of days a week. But great. I mean, I give her total credit for raising our kids. That they turned out the way they did. So great person. Did a lot of volunteering, and really proud of her.
A blessed family.
Yeah, very blessed.
Doug, tell us about, I know you mentioned it, but tell us a little bit about it.
Well, okay, so Aaron is the oldest, and he came to me not by the accident in birth, but by marriage. He was Diana's from first marriage. I adopted him I've had him since he was 3, adopted him when he was 8. He's got an MBA, and he works in operations in the county. The middle son, Josh, is an awful lot like me in some respects. He's an awful lot like Brett Blair. He's going to go seize it. He's going to go get it, and very enthusiastic about everything he does, and doesn't like to sit down too much. And then Tiffany is my daughter. She's the baby, and her degree is in Spanish. She speaks fluent Spanish. She went to school as an extension program at the University of Nevada in Spain. And she loves culture, business culture, the non-compliance human resources side of the business. And she's really taken the cultural aspects of our business, and she's the champion of that. She really carries it out. And there's a lot of focus on family being the business, the people that work there, not just us. And so...
Been a real blessing, haven't
They have, and I've got 4 grandkids.
we? Zig Ziglar said if I know grandkids were so great, I'd have had them first. All right. Albert, you got any kids? Wife?
I've got a couple here. I've got 4 kids. My first is 24 years old. He just got released yesterday. He graduated from university yesterday. He came home, dropped his bag off, and he hit a flight he's in Thailand anytime in a few hours. He's going to go to Thailand, then Cambodia, and Vietnam for a month, and then he comes back and dives right into his job at the bank. He's working at this CIBC in Canada there. And the second one just finished second year of university. He's doing business, so he's became president of this association, whatever it might be this year, Dean's List kind of thing. And my daughter, she's 18. She's currently in Turks and Caicos, dancing at the Beaches Resort. So if anybody's there, go up and say hi. You're from the Eagle. She'll appreciate it. So she'll be there till August 1st. And then my little guy, he's at home. He's the one with autism. So he'll probably be with us for a while, but I'm grateful for that because I know what my wife would do if he left home, so that's okay. It's a blessing. And so that's the family. They're doing great, and that's coming from, it's a blessing when you think where it came from. And I've got 1 graduate from university, 1 on the way, and then my daughter wants to come back. Once she's finished her bucket list, she wanted to dance. She's a dancer, so she wanted to either get on a cruise or end up at a resort, and she's got that off her list now, so she'll come back and start school as well. So.
Tell a little bit about your mother.
My mom?
She has to be really special.
She's okay, Tom. Yeah. No, my mom lives with us right now, and she's amazing. In the Caribbean, we call her a soldier, because no matter what time of day you get up, she's up. When you're sick, she's there. Shirt off her back kind of lady, truly shirt off her back. Even times when I remember when in Jamaica and Canada, when we didn't have much, we would literally see someone else sleeping on our floor, maybe 1 or 2 other extra people eating our food. It's like, Mom, come on, seriously? Another one? Yeah, so she's literally like that.
You're blessed.
Yes, I
Doug?
am.
Just one thing I wanted to say about Roger Hall.
Watch out, Roger. You can stay in the room.
Roger put on the first HPA class, High Performance Advisors, which I was privileged to be a part of. It lasted a year, and there were a number of us in this room that were in that. And talk about a great mentor and learning a lot of things. If you get that up and going, which I know you have some plans down the line, and you have the opportunity to go through that, I really recommend it.
Good, I agree. Made a difference in that group, bonded as a group. So any last words of wisdom before we terminate that you want to share?
I want to touch on the fire service. I feel part of my passion and why I did well with my company is for 22 years I was a volunteer firefighter, and you get put in a lot of situations when you're willing to answer those tones. Anywhere from the adrenaline of fighting a fire, being the first one to kick the door in and go in, which is awesome. But to rolling up on an accident where there's been a fatality, or getting handed a 9-month-old baby to do CPR on, you are forced to make decisions quickly. And you have to live with your decision. And if you didn't do it right, you learn from it, and you do it better the next time. So there's things that shape your life. And Mike, thank you for what you do, because I feel like being a volunteer fireman for 22 years definitely shaped my life, and definitely plays a part in how I run my business.
Let's hear it for Mike. Making a difference, touching lives. Nancy, stand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something, because I've had several sidebar conversations with people who are ready to jump in or at least exploring it. So I'm going to hang out here when we break for lunch, and if you just want to come over and explain what it's like and how I can tase you.
You take another customer, another client?
I sure can.
Hope we haven't embarrassed you, Amy.
Not at all.
All right, let's hear it for these three guys. All right. Thank you, guys. Jason Wilford, front and center. Let's hear it for Jason Wilford. I got some stories to tell on this guy.
Yeah, I was just looking at
All kinds of, all kinds
I can
of,
tell you about this other thing I'm doing.
so,
Telecommunications.
several years ago, I mean, it was more than that,
I'll tell you about it.
I selected, out of all my Hills Angels, I selected 12 that had the biggest business. Craig Hughes was there. Yeah. So anyhow, this one Hills Angel, who is a character, Reggie, came and to me ahead of time and said, you got to have this guy named Jason Wilford speak at this event. We were in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I said, no, that won't work, 'cause I've never heard him, and this is my top group. And he said, you got to have him speak. I said, no. And he said, you got to. I gave up. I'd never met this guy before. He came and spoke. 11 of the 12 hired him. He was that good. Tremendous demand for speaking. He'd been doing a ton of business speaking, right?
Yeah, I used to.
Yeah. Got two.
Not so much anymore.
Two demand.
I'm still married, so that tells me I'm not doing very much more.
So, one of my theories is that, and Alan, you might agree with this, that 70% of us men married up. Married somebody that challenged us, kept us, on the straight and left, all that, And you did. Let's hear it for Betsy Williford. Woo-hoo! Stand up, Betsy. So another Jason story. So Betsy and Jason, at that time, they had one child, Cody, and we were at Gary Baker's restaurant in Lake St. Louis called Donatelli's, and I carry these presidential dollars, those coins, those new ones. They quit making a thing, and give them to kids just spontaneously. I mean, strangers. I only had one parent that wouldn't take one, but that's another story. So Cody and Betsy and Jason and Betty out there at Donatelli's restaurant, and I always ask the parent. I don't give it to the kids. I said, James, okay if I give Cody 2 of these coins? Sure. So Cody came over and I said, here, 2 presidential dollars for you, Cody. And he goes like this. Took one to Betsy, one for you, Mommy. Took one to Dad. One for Dad. Out of 1,000, probably I've given 1,000 of those away. That's the first time that's ever happened. Every child. And
So then I went home and did a blood test. That's all Betsy, for you guys that don't know me.
I was so impressed. And so And my theory is, about 85% of who you are today, Alan, went back to the first 8 years of your life. Your values, belief systems, who you are, how you see the world. First 8 years is so important. And we're losing that core family, and then our schools are the second most important thing. So, we got connected, I think, through Gary Baker, Opportunity International. And Jason got involved in it. So 2 things. One, I want you to tell the Cody birthday story.
Yeah, so, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let Betsy tell it. Betsy, come on up.
Come here, Betsy.
Yeah.
We got a microphone.
She tells it a lot better than I do. She was there. She just told me about it. And I read about it in the paper after.
I'm coming up in bare feet.
Bare feet. Yep, that's Betsy. Bare feet, Betsy, right there.
There you go. Councilor.
Okay, so
Good afternoon.
The party.
Started with the lemonade stand that whole deal.
okay, well, the lemonade stand.
The book, he was going to, yeah.
Okay, well, so this whole birthday party thing Tom was talking about, with Opportunity International, is that what you're wanting me to go into? Okay. So, all of you have heard of Opportunity International, yes? Okay, so the guy out of Dallas had given Jason and I this book called One Hen and encouraged us to read it to Cody. And one evening we read it, and it's about this little boy in a country in Africa that had basically changed his entire village with one chicken. And from that chicken came all these different business ventures that supported his entire village, whether it's selling the eggs or using the droppings from the chicken for other things, fertilizer and all this. So when I was reading it to Cody, he was like, did this really happen? And he was, how old was he? He was 5. And I,
He's 4.
was he 4?
He's about to turn 5.
Oh yeah, first birthday, okay. So I told him that yes, this is based on the life of a real child. And he said, well, I'm going to help the boy with the chicken business. And I said, well, how are we going to do that?
This is a 4-year-old.
Yeah, I was kind of blown away by his, he was very thoughtful and had a lot of compassion and thinking that someone would have so little. And so he said instead of having people bring gifts for his birthday, he wanted people to donate money to the boy with his chicken business. And so I was like, well, how do we attract a bunch of kids to come? So we lived in this little house in University Park, Texas, and we just had a big festival in our front yard, blocked off the street, both ends of our block, and had Jason's family. A lot of the women would go to the state fair and paint faces, so they set up a table and painted all the children's faces, and we had a taco food truck, and that was his first birthday party like that. How much did we raise? Close to 6,000. It was like 55.
Yeah.
Or no, it wasn't quite that much.
It was 35 the first year.
35 the first year. Overall, after his second birthday, those 2 parties combined. Then when we moved to South Lake, we did another party, and he really wanted to try to become a governor in that birthday party. But we rented out a park field and had one of our friends who owns an entertainment company set up a bunch of inflatables, and he's like, well, I'll make a bunch of friends because we just moved here and get everybody to like me, to come to my birthday party and play in all these inflatables, and lots and lots of kids showed up. It was a lot of fun, and really proud of him as his parents to see him have such a heart of compassion for a perfect stranger and set an example for other kids. He passed out little cards that Opportunity International had given him to give to his friends so they'd have an opportunity to get online and select someone that they could give back to also. You can read their story and what their goals are, their mission is in their community. So really, really neat to see him.
Teach his friends and me.
Yeah.
So how much did that raise?
I don't remember the second one.
But this money all went
Right at,
to OI?
right at, yeah, it was right over 5,000. I don't remember exactly.
In the Opportunity International, yeah, if you're not familiar with it, it's a Christian microfinance. The average loan is $200, and 90+% of the loans go to women in third world countries. There's 22 countries, and there's like a 98% payback. So if you're a donor of $5,000, you get to be a governor. That's what Cody,
Yeah.
5-year, wanted to be a governor and put this all together.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what a lot of people in this room gave very, very graciously in Fort Worth in our last summit. Some good trips. Sounds like the first trip was good. Another one coming up. They were bought at auction, and that's where the idea came from. It was from our 5-year-old son. So, you know, from the mouths of babes, right? So it was a big lesson for me.
might be some parenting. in
Yeah,
there.
that one right there.
So anyhow, I love that story. So then, we've had our 53rd summit was in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And Saturday night is always, all the summits is like we're having tonight. Dean's going to speak, we've got a special program. And Jason called me a few months before the summit and said, Tom, I want Saturday night.
Kind of like we were introduced. I thought you were crazy too, just so everybody knows. You started with meditation, and I thought, what did Reggie get me into? You were there, remember? There wasn't running water. Kim was there. Or it was pigeons. It was weird.
We were at a kind of monastery retreat thing.
Yeah.
Now, one of the guys, I think it's Lauren. Lauren, by the way, did Lauren ever come in? He's sick.
He said,
He's sick. I just got email from him, he'll try to be here tomorrow.
Okay.
so,
Anyhow, somebody, I blame it on Lauren, had never made a bed in his life. They had to make their own bed. Terry went in and made the bed for somebody. This was an entertaining experience. So anyhow, Lauren called me last, probably summer, early fall. He went Saturday night. Well, normally I wouldn't do it, but this guy, I said, okay, what's it going to be? Well, I'll have to let you know. So how many of you been to the Fort Worth Stockyards? Anybody been to Fort Worth Stockyards? So the story continues. So you give her a lot of credit again, is that okay?
yeah, I came up with the idea, and of course, she did all the work.
So who's going to explain what happened there?
That's Bill.
No, I bet you. What
A lot of
happened?
these people
What
are
happened
there.
Saturday night at Fort Worth at the Eagle Summit?
Yeah.
Who all was there that evening?
Yeah, a lot
Okay.
of you, so
Okay,
really
awesome,
must
yeah.
I
You
explain?
can't describe it. You can't describe the Fort Worth Stockyards either.
Yeah, it's Cowtown. It really is. If you haven't been there, they run cows typically every day. They do a cattle drive, and it really is Cowtown. It's where the West begins, is what they say. And we just threw a big, good old-fashioned party. Yeah.
But it's an interesting place. It's not typically you might think it is. A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
A lot of variety, a lot of music, you name it. So anyhow, so I said, okay, kind of hold my breath. So go ahead.
Well, a lot of you were there. I mean, we had a dinner and had lots of items that people had donated to basically do an adult version of what Cody's vision had been. And so it was a really successful event.
So you sign in, had some great music. These guys can play anything. Classical, country, you name it. Great music. Had games around, you could play like you're in a casino. You had to check in. It was just a real party. And I think you raised, what, $100, $200?
Yeah, a little more than that. That's about right.
How much did we raise?
It was like almost 25,000.
Yeah, just over actually at the end.
Yeah.
And that's going to be loaned out $200 at a time.
So,
Is that amazing?
all because Cody read that book. I mean, seriously, we were getting close to 40, and a lot of our friends were doing trips, and we were going to go with Joey and Kate Milgoss. You guys know them, I think, or most of you do. Just for a trip, we were just going to do a fun weekend together, and then it just hit me. It's like, who am I not to follow his footsteps? So that's what we decided to do. And we actually had the party scheduled a week before, and then you scheduled the summit. It's like, well, let's just move it a week, and that's how it all happened.
Yeah. How many of you met Joey Goss? Okay, just an incredible guy. I'm going to tell one story on him. You go back to this theme, making a difference, touching lives. Joey, very successful builder. He's a godparent, right? You're right. Yeah, all three of their kids. He's an orphan, made it in the construction business, building homes. And so he went to get gas at the gas station with his credit card, and wouldn't take his card. So he goes in the station and says, you know, I want to fill my car up. And he said, well, how much you want? She said, well, I want it full. He's kind of aggravated. So he left and walked by this guy with no legs, sitting in a wheelchair. He went on to his car, and he thought, I should have said hi to him. He went back, started talking to this guy, ended up buying him legs, gave him a job, and bought him a car. Can you imagine?
Drive him off the street.
Got him off the street. That's just one example. So, this guy named Jason Wilford at this dockyard thing came up to me and said, Tom, this guy needs to be a Hills Angel. Stand up, Dwayne. Let's hear it for Dwayne. Being Amber, touching lives and making a difference. So, you said I need to connect him, so I connected. How did you all meet originally?
We both ended up at a small school in Kansas playing football, and we were two Texas rednecks in Kansas, lost, confused, snow, and a lot of Yankees.
Fell in love with two of the Yankees from that.
Yeah, ended up marrying two Yankees. Yeah, that's how it happened. We found each other in a hurry. There weren't very many of us. And we kind of migrated to the same area. He opened his mouth and said, "You're not from around here." I said, "Well, that's the same."
Yeah. And Dwayne, you did what 7% of people do. You married up.
Yeah.
You really did.
Yeah.
We won't bother you with a microphone, but stand up just real quick and tell us basically what you're doing. What's your business?
Okay, so just real quick, I got sick and tired of walking into companies that we work with and seeing people walk in with their heads down and their headphones on, right? And got really energized about helping people to build businesses that are worth fighting for, right? Know people to come in and give them something more than a paycheck to work for. So over the last 18 years, I built this method that helps leaders get really clear on why they exist other than just to make money, and then to build a vision and a roadmap around building that business, the business to achieve a vision to impact people, right, or communities or what have you. So we've been implementing this business model in the design and construction industry for quite some time, and I was on a plane a few years ago, and it was one of those moments where I was like, thank you, God, I get to do this, right? I'm really thankful. And God goes, well, it's unfortunate not many people can afford it. It's like, okay, that means something. So I'm also kind of in a transition period where I'm trying to figure out how to replicate what we do so that a lot of people can deploy it into their business.
Thank you. God bless you. You did a lot of good. So what do you see in your crystal ball?
Crystal ball towards which life area, Tom?
Just life. What do you see if you look down the...
I see living every day and sliding the home base out of juice.
Anybody see that Toronto Jake, who Jay, do that flip over the catcher? Is that you?
No, I don't run through them.
All right.
No, I like scaling businesses. That's the net. Is I get to serve several leaders in this room, and it's about it's cliche anymore, right? But
What is
to me, it isn't a cliche. It really is about being significant, not successful. It's about making a difference while we're here. Right?
If you haven't read halftime, you got to read it.
Yeah.
All of you
We're in his old house. Do you know that?
No.
Yeah, we bought his old house as a matter of fact. Small world. Yeah.
When that book came out, I was so impressed with it. I called him, and he actually answered the phone. I said, I want to meet you. What did he say?
Yes.
Come on down. So I spent a half a day with him. And that's kind of become the underlying theme for the Eagle Summit. Is you're already successful, or you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be invited, but it's time to make a significant.
Yeah, it's about getting out of our own way, really.
Yeah.
It's about understanding our limitations as a leader, and really understanding how do you get out of your way by hiring the right people to put them around you and scale, and about making a difference and treating people. I really believe conscious capitalism is treating people the way they should be treated. We overcomplicate it. Conscious capitalist pig, I've been called that. So it's about scaling and making a difference, right? And that's really what it's about.
Okay. You have two more children since Cody. Tell us about them.
Well, we have Ryder, who is 3, and he's the most interesting child I think I have ever been around.
That says a lot.
Well, he doesn't play with toys. He plays with extension cords. He does not plug them into live sockets. He plugs them into each other, and he plugs them in behind pillows or couch cushions or into drawers. If the plug is covered, it is plugged in. And he'll take my blow dryer, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to sit down, you're going to do my hair. No, Mom, it's the car wash. Okay, okay, so I'm going through the car wash. No, Mom, you're not a car. And so the blow dryer is the car wash. And I have no idea what he's going to end up being. He is really, really introverted, which is hard for me to relate to. But
That one for sure is mine. There's no doubt about that.
yeah, most definitely. But he's a sweet little guy as long as you leave him alone with whatever it is he's creating. And then we were surprised by Taya, who will be 2. She turns 2 on July 3rd, and she is all girl, all sass, got her daddy wrapped around her pinky, and so drama. Which is really unfortunate for her since I had 2 boys first. So she'll like all out lay down on the floor and I step over her.
We also know that one's ours.
For sure. Maybe a little bit. But she's very much the princess. The boys love her to pieces, and we're having a lot of fun with a little girl in the mix. Loves jewelry, purses, shoes.
So
Totally
hopefully the
mine.
next summit that Jason comes to, we're going to actually do a content presentation.
Yeah,
What do you call that?
It's been a few years. I don't know, what do you call it? Value, maybe?
Whatever you want to call it. Let's hear it for Jason and Betsy. All right, Jimmy and Elizabeth come up. We've got just a few minutes left. Welcome, Jimmy Taylor and Elizabeth. Woo! Get your microphone there. Okay. How did you all meet?
Through a guy named Tom Hill
At a summit?
at a summit.
At a summit?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So how did we meet?
I drove to Austin in the middle of the night because our business was sponsoring a breakfast and I didn't want to spend the night in the hotel. And so the speaker at the sponsor at the event, when he got up, I went, oh my gosh, I drove 3 hours in the middle of the night to hear this old guy talk to me. But he was pretty phenomenal. I pretty quickly fell in love with him, so that's how we met.
How did we meet?
You and I met because of Ned Miner. And Ned and I, we were having lunch, and I was showing him some of my entrepreneurial flight diagrams and the programs that we were doing. And he said, you know, you just have got to come and meet this guy, Tom Hill. And so you and I had a conversation on the phone and invited me to a summit. And we had a great lunch. And I showed you all my stuff. And that's how I met you, yeah.
So that thing I went to, that lady where I met Ned, you weren't there? That even what's her name? What's her name, Terry? That we didn't invite back to the summit.
No, that wasn't me.
No, it wasn't me. So anyhow,
No, I don't know.
I can't think of her name now, but that's where I met Ned. I still remember where I met him.
He'd been coming to summits for quite some time before I showed up. So,
Yeah, before he.
Her name Bobby, Tom.
Pardon?
Bobby.
Oh, yeah. So you're in Fort Collins,
yes.
and your father was an orthodontist. You know any orthodontists? There's one right there in paint. And so I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, and then we'll be wrapping this up, but I want to share a little bit of what they're doing. But Elizabeth loves to ski, and so she was going to heli skiing. So the pilot is watching her come across the place to the helicopter. And he told his assistant, make sure she sits by me. They're not married. Now that is a God wink when that happened. So I met Jimmy. Jimmy had built a company and sold it. And he said, I thought I was Warren Buffett. Yeah. And then one of your employees started another company, similar company, right?
Yeah, well, we started several at the same time, which is a really bad idea.
That's another story. There'll be a book about that.
Yeah.
And Navotas became like a staffing company. And that was sold when?
January of 2016.
Okay. And I said, Jimmy, we really need to meet, get involved with her as part of the business, because it's her consulting business. So tell in a nutshell, what is Venusel?
Okay, so Venusel is a company that works with private owners to help them build and grow their companies and help them create great places for people to work, but also help people take the business over. So we actually have a process called the Transition Roadmap. We believe transition is a journey, it's not an event, and it takes years to go through it. And so we help families and business owners build these roadmaps so that they can have clarity for themselves and also for others, and then help the others develop and grow, as well as help themselves develop and grow and get through that transition. And while we're doing it, usually a business has to grow by definition, because you're bringing on children or you're bringing on other people to take over your role, and so you need more money. So we'll also help them with the business growth. That's what we do.
And did you take my advice?
I took your advice. I always do.
Tell us about it.
Well, our company was at a point where I could do some other things besides just work, and so Elizabeth needed some consulting help, and so I started doing some projects with her. Her partner decided to retire, so I started doing a few additionals. And I mean, she's got 25 years, so I'm really just a glorified note taker. My wife gets up every day praying, please, Lord, don't let Elizabeth fire him today. So it's been good for her very life. But yeah, so we just kind of started working on a few projects, and it's been really good. It's been fun. And we're also, go ahead.
Where does Australia figure in this?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, so some quick stats. You guys, you're here because you love to learn. So 80% of CEOs in North America, Harvard Business Review surveyed, said they're concerned about their company's ability to attract and retain the talent they need to grow. PricewaterhouseCoopers study about the same time said that 60% of CEOs say that their company is already negatively impacted from a growth perspective because they can't find the people they need. If you look at Gallup stuff, only about a third at best of the typical workforce is engaged. Labor force participation rates are dropping mostly because of the aging of guys like me, baby boomers that either retire or die at their desk, right? So the country really has this incredible obstacle around engagement. You see it in employee turnover and engagement scores, and I mean, you guys live it every day with your people. And so we were hit very hard with it in Austin. We hired, the workforce we were hiring was extremely competitive in that marketplace, and we were by far not the top payer. We were middle of the road. So we started looking for things to help with turnover and engagement, and met a guy out of Australia who had spent about 3 years doing some research out of his leadership practice, and what he discovered was that there's 20 drivers of workplace attachment. And the first 120 days of a new employee's life cycle with your company, attachment is extremely moldable. You can shape it like putty. At about 120 days, it's set like concrete. It's very difficult to change. So that onboarding phase that we all knew was important is really essential. And so he developed a survey tool that allowed an anonymous survey to be issued to the employee. You could measure the workplace attachment, deliver a report to the hiring manager, so the hiring manager can now sit down and have a structured conversation with this employee about where they're not attaching well. We got phenomenal results with it with our management team, so Elizabeth and I are introducing that product to North America. So yeah, that's the Australian connection.
What do you call it?
It's called the Employee Attachment Inventory. There's also a detachment inventory that measures why they're leaving, but EAI is the name of it.
Any last words of wisdom you want to share with this group? They got your bio.
They got my bio.
You need to reach her. You have clients all over, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We've got clients all over. We're
North America.
Yeah, all across Canada, all across the U.S. We've worked in Cayman South Africa, is where our models are being used. So we're excited about that. And last words of wisdom, that's a big one for me.
Well, the words of what you're doing in May with Deb.
Yeah, Deb Carlin, Dr. Deb, thanks to Steve Denny, right, and Don, right? I was invited to go to St. Louis and to do a workshop for some women owners, and that was really a wonderful thing. And while I was there, I met Dr. Deb Carlin. She and I have come together, and we're putting together basically a workshop called the Pathfinder, and we're looking at running it in June and then also in August. And we're wanting to bring at least 10 people together and actually help them figure out their path going forward. We're planning on using your 6-year plan in it, with your permission, of course. You can give it to us.
He said I'd give it to you.
Good. And so the idea is to figure out, use some tools that I've used for a long, long time, use some tools that Deb has used for a long, long time, and really understand who you are as a person, what your personal mission is, what your 6-year plan is, your 18-month G curve, and then have a plan to go actually execute it. And we're hoping to have actually have some people that want some coaching and will come into some of the work that Roger's done. So we're kind of putting that together. But it's pretty exciting. So, yeah, I'm excited for that.
When I first met Dr. Carlin, I thought, golly, who is this? I don't really know her. She's a piece of work. PhD, written books, I don't know what all.
She's amazing.
She really is.
Yeah, she's an amazing lady. So I feel really fortunate to be working with her, and Jimmy and I are happy to be navigating and starting that program.
Yeah, should be interesting. Have you ever heard of HPA? What is that?
I have heard of HPA. A shameless plug for Roger. If you don't know Roger, you should meet him. He's brilliant. One of the smartest guys in the room.
Married up.
Married up, yeah. But we went through the high performance advising workshop. This was Tammy, Doug, Mike Powers, Brett. Who am I leaving out? Kim, Kim Langdon. And so it was basically a structured program to teach you how to be a coach. And so we met by phone monthly, and then we met 1 weekend a quarter in St. Louis, and then when we were together at the summits. And I use the training every day. I was by far Roger's worst student. He told me regularly, but it was phenomenal training, and it's really very applicable. So if you have a bent towards doing that, or with your employees or people, it's just a great program to take a look at.
God bless Elizabeth and what's your name? Have you ever met somebody for the very, very first time by phone and you just felt connected? Never met them, you don't know much about him. Well, Dick Wallace in Nashville was, or I guess he's selling the practice now, right, Dean? Of TAB, the alternative board. And I did a few presentations for him in Nashville, which is my favorite town. And he emailed me or called me, and his first, now think about this, think about a God link. This guy was Dick Wallace, from Nashville, was in Rome with his wife on vacation. And they went to a restaurant where you just sat at a table with other people. And so he started talking to a lady that was sitting there, and she said, well, I'm from Fredericktown, Missouri, and I have a flower shop, and I want to sell it. Do you know anybody who might be able to help me? I said, well, let me think about it. So I said, Steve Denny, that flower shop is now listed by Steve, and this lady is now a Hills Angel. Amazing story. We're going to change her life, and she's going to touch a lot of lives. She's a real deal. Well, the second person that Dick recommends, a guy named Dean Wagner. Stand up, Dean, so they can see you. You get to know him. We just connected, or I felt connected. He might have thought, who is this old man? He sent me a picture of his family, a beautiful family. And one of the things we'll talk about tonight was your He had three kids and then adopted an interesting person, the baby. And so the more I learned from him, and then anybody remember Cordy Harrington? Cordy, I connected Dean and Cordy, and they got to meet. And he's got a real problem. We're going to help him tonight. He's got 3 incredible opportunities. Another problem. And so you're going to be his advisory board tonight. So we're going to spend a few minutes with him just telling his story, background, West Point graduate and all that. And then we're going to help him solve his wonderful opportunities. And every time I think of West Point, how many remember Nancy Gookwa that spoke? Nancy was in the first class of females at West Point. Wow. And I asked her, well, did you always want to go in the military? Was that your thing? And she said, no, Dad said there's no tuition. So she went through West Point, graduated, and went to work for a big insurance company in St. Louis. You'll never, ever be, if I ask everyone to write down 10 places where she might be working or doing now, you never put this down. She's a nun in a nunnery, are they called nunneries? Whatever they, in northwest Missouri, in a town, think this town now, Conception Junction. You can't make that happen. I asked her one time, I said, you're the first female in that class, there's a lot of them in the class. What was your mindset to get through that, put up with that? She said, I made up my mind. Every time I got a command, an order from somebody above me, I'd say, no excuse, sir. She made it through just fine. The third person that Dick recommended, do you know Rebecca Abrams? Okay. She couldn't be here. Kind of fascinating lady in Nashville. She'll be at the October summit. So Terry, cash bar at 6:30? 6:30 in here. And then dinner at 7, buffet, and then we'll take a potty break after that, and then Dean and I are going to save the world, aren't we, Dean? Let's do it. All right. God bless you. Have a great afternoon.